I was only gone for 2 hours. 2 quiet, peaceful hours at the park where I liked to sit beneath the old neem tree, listening to children laugh, and watching the birds hop around like they owned the world. At 75, peace becomes a treasure. You learn to hold it carefully, like something fragile. I remember walking back home that evening humming a tune my late husband used to whistle. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky gold. I smiled to myself, until I turned the corner and saw my yard. At first, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were showing me. My belongings, my memories, were scattered everywhere. My wool sweaters, the ones I hand-knitted in winters so long ago. My framed wedding picture, lying face down in the mud. Old letters my husband wrote me when he worked away from home. Photo albums, clothes, books, everything that held pieces of my life. All thrown out like trash. For a moment, I simply stood there, the world spinning around me. My heart felt as though someone had squeezed it with both hands. I took a slow step forward, then another, my feet sinking into the soft soil as I moved closer to the wreckage. And then I heard her voice. "Well, you're back earlier than we thought." My daughter-in-law, Nadia, appeared at the door, arms folded, a playful smirk on her face as though she were commenting on the weather, and not on the destruction she had caused. "We decided to do some cleaning," she said. "Those old things are useless." Useless. The word slapped me harder than any hand could. For her, all I had lived through, all I had saved, all the pieces of my husband, my youth, my motherhood, it was nothing. Just old things. I lifted the wedding photo from the ground. The frame was cracked, the glass broken. My husband's smile still looked up at me through the shards. My fingers trembled, but not from age. Not this time. From something deeper. Something I had held back for years. "You threw these away?" I whispered. "Of course," she shrugged. "They take up space. You don't need them anymore." I looked at her, truly looked. The woman who had married my only son. The woman I welcomed into my home with open arms, cooked for, prayed for, supported. The woman I had defended more times than she ever knew. And now she stood before me, proud of the cruelty she had done. In that moment, something inside me shifted. A slow, quiet click, like a door unlocking. I straightened my back, lifting my chin. I wasn't the fragile old woman she thought I was. 75 years had given me scars, wisdom, strength, and a patience that, when broken, became something far more dangerous. I looked her straight in the eyes, steady, unblinking. "Then," I said softly, "I will clean out what's useless to me too." Her smile faded just a little. She didn't understand what I meant. Not yet. But I did. For 75 years I had lived for others. For my husband, for my son, for my family. I carried burdens that weren't mine, swallowed hurt that wasn't deserved, and stayed silent because I believed that love meant endurance. But standing in that yard, surrounded by the ruins of everything I cherished, I realized something powerful. Sometimes silence becomes consent. And I would no longer consent. As the wind swept across the yard, lifting pieces of torn memories into the air, I felt something unfamiliar. Something I hadn't felt in years. Strength. Clarity. Resolve. Yes. It was time. Time to clean out what was truly useless to me. Time to show who was really in charge. That night, after I picked up what little could be saved from the yard, I sat alone in my room. The air felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My fingers brushed over my husband's letters, some torn, some smeared with dirt, and I felt a pain I hadn't felt in decades. Not since the night he died. The night I learned what loneliness truly meant. But this loneliness felt different. This was not the ache of losing someone you love. This was the ache of being betrayed by someone you raised. My son didn't come home until late. I heard his footsteps, slow and hesitant, as if he already knew what had been done in his name. When he finally opened my door, he didn't meet my eyes. "Ma, Nadia told me you got upset," he muttered. "Did she tell you why?" I asked quietly. He shifted uncomfortably. "She said, those things were cluttering the house. She was just trying to help." Just trying to help. My heart tightened again. My son, my only child, was defending what they had done. Worse, he believed it was reasonable. "You think my memories are clutter?" My voice shook. Not from weakness, but from the effort to hold back everything that wanted to spill out. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Ma, we're planning a few changes. Nadia wants to renovate. Make the house more modern. I stared at him. Renovate? He didn't answer right away. That hesitation, that told me everything. So I asked the question directly. Are you planning to sell the house? His silence was louder than any confession. Ah, there it was. The truth behind their sudden cleaning. The home my husband and I built together, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, was no longer a home to them. It was a prize. A financial opportunity. A stepping stone to something bigger. And the biggest stone in their way was me. My son finally spoke, his voice low. Ma, we were thinking of moving to a bigger place. Somewhere closer to the city. It would be easier if I wasn't here. I finished for him. He didn't deny it. I felt the weight of decades on my shoulders. All the nights I stayed awake sewing so he'd have new clothes for school. All the mornings I walked to work before sunrise so I could save bus fare. All the meals skipped, dreams postponed, tears swallowed. And for what? So he could grow into a man who saw his mother as an inconvenience. A burden. A piece of old furniture he could move. Or throw away. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Nadia had done. Because she was a stranger I tried to love. But he was a part of me. My boy. My blood. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. Does this house belong to you? He hesitated again. Well, no. But someday. No. I interrupted softly but firmly. Not someday. Not ever. He finally looked at me, surprise flickering in his eyes. I realized something then. He had never truly seen me. He saw the woman who cooked, cleaned, forgave, and endured. He never saw the woman who survived widowhood, who worked 2 jobs, who managed every bill and every hardship alone. He never saw my strength. But he would now. After he left my room, murmuring something about thinking things over. I sat for a long time in the silence. The truth had burned through the fog. Their cruelty wasn't accidental. It wasn't thoughtless. It was planned. And a strange calm settled over me then. Because they had forgotten something very important. This house, every wall, every tile, every corner, was written in one name only. Mine. My late husband had made sure of it. In life he protected me. In death he still did. I reached for the drawer where I kept the old file of documents. The faded property papers felt heavy in my hands, heavy with possibilities. They wanted to throw me out? They wanted me gone? I smiled for the first time that day. They had no idea what I was capable of. The next morning the house felt colder. Not because of the weather, but because my heart had finally stopped making excuses for people who no longer cared for me. I moved through the room slowly, observing everything with new eyes. The photographs that once hung on the wall were gone, replaced by Nadia's modern art prints. My embroidered cushions were tossed aside, while her decorative pieces sat proudly on the shelves. This was no longer my home. It was a place where I slept, nothing more. But the beauty of being 75 is that you stop fearing change. I had lived through worse storms. This one would not drown me. After making myself a cup of tea, because even in chaos, tea is a kind of strength, I pulled out the property documents again. I studied the signatures, the seals, the dates. My late husband's handwriting looked almost alive. Strong. Sure. He left everything to me. Only me. A small laugh escaped my lips, surprising even myself. Oh my dear, I whispered to his memory. They think I am weak. But you knew better, didn't you? I placed the papers into my handbag and left the house without announcing anything. For years, I had told everyone where I was going, when I'd return, what I needed. Let them wonder this time. Let them feel even a fraction of the uncertainty they forced me into. The local lawyer's office was a short walk away. I had known the man, Mr. Farid, for years. He used to greet me kindly whenever we saw each other in the market. When I entered, he stood up immediately. Auntie Mara, please have a seat. I didn't waste time. I need to protect what's mine, I told him, placing the documents before him. And I need to make changes. He adjusted his glasses and studied the papers silently for a few minutes. Then he nodded. Everything is still in your name. No one can make decisions without your consent. What changes do you want? I leaned in, my voice steady. I want to prevent my son and daughter-in-law from having any legal claim to this house. Not now, not in the future. And I want to update my will. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he did not question me. It can be done. Good. Because kindness is wasted on people who see it as weakness. We spent nearly 2 hours drafting documents, signing papers, and setting a future plan. The entire time, I felt something lighten inside me, like I was peeling away years of being taken for granted. But my revenge wasn't just about the house. No, if I was going to teach them a lesson, it had to be one they could never forget. After leaving the lawyer, I went to visit an old building at the edge of town. It was a small shelter for women, widows, abandoned mothers, women with no one to turn to. Decades ago, after my husband died, I had come here for help once. They gave me groceries, comfort, and a place to cry without judgment. A young woman greeted me at the door. Assalamu alaikum, auntie. How can we help you today? I touched the doorway gently. I came to give back what was once given to me. We walked inside. And as I looked around at the women sewing, cooking, learning, I felt something warm fill my chest. These were people who knew real pain. People who deserved real help. What if my home could become theirs someday? What if my life's work could shelter lives long after mine was gone? The idea planted itself firmly in my heart. As I returned home later that evening, I saw my son and Nadia laughing in the living room, discussing plans I wasn't included in. They fell silent when they saw me, but I said nothing. I only smiled. Let them think I was quiet, defeated, harmless. Let them enjoy the comfort of a house they believed they would soon own. Because the sweetest revenge is the kind served silently, patiently, and with absolute certainty. And I was almost ready. The morning was bright and clear, but inside the house, a storm was about to break. I walked up the steps slowly, feeling every crack beneath my feet, as if the house itself whispered to me that it had always belonged to me. My handbag swung gently at my side, holding the documents that would change everything. My heart was steady, my steps measured, my mind calm. Nadia opened the door before I could even knock. "Oh, you're back," she said, trying to sound cheerful. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, something like a shadow of fear. I smiled politely, letting her stew in it a little longer. "Good morning," I said. "I have someone with me." The lawyer, Mr. Farid, stepped into the room behind me. His presence was solid, confident. He carried a folder that made the weight in my handbag seem lighter. My son, who had been lounging on the sofa, looked up, startled. "Ma, what's going on?" he asked, a hint of panic creeping into his voice. I turned to him slowly, fixing him with the same steady gaze I had used weeks ago when my belongings were thrown into the yard. "This is what's going on," I said calmly. I handed Mr. Farid the floor. He began explaining, in a formal but gentle tone, the legal reality that my son and daughter-in-law had ignored. That the house was in my name, that any attempt to sell or transfer it without my consent was illegal, and that I had now updated my will to prevent them from ever claiming it. My son's face went pale. Nadia's smirk had vanished completely, replaced by a flush of anger she tried, and failed, to hide. "And more," I continued, my voice steady, quiet, but sharp enough to cut through their disbelief. "I've decided to donate this house." Their eyes widened in horror. "Donate?" Nadia's voice rose in pitch, trembling with rage. "Yes," I said. "To a women's charity. The same one that helped me decades ago when I had nowhere to turn. The house will now provide shelter and hope to women who need it more than you two ever did." They both froze. My son opened his mouth, but no words came out. His pride, his sense of entitlement, had been blindsided by the calmness in my voice and the authority in my actions. I placed my handbag on the table, letting the weight of it symbolize everything they had tried to push aside. My dignity, my history, my memories. "You threw my belongings into the dirt," I said quietly. "You tried to erase what I built, what I loved, and what I earned. And for that, you will no longer benefit from this home." Nadia took a step forward, shaking with frustration. "Ma, this is ridiculous. You can't do this." I smiled softly, letting years of pain, sacrifice, and endurance finally shine through as quiet power. I already did. And the law, which you ignored, fully supports me. I spent decades building, protecting, and loving this home. You treated it, and me with disdain. Now you will face the consequences of your choices. For the first time in years, I felt a lightness in my chest. A calm joy bloomed inside me. The weight of betrayal, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, the anger. They were all transforming into something far more powerful: freedom. I turned to leave. My son and daughter-in-law were speechless, rooted to the floor in disbelief. I didn't need to raise my voice or shout. I didn't need to demand apologies or pity. I simply walked out, each step resonating with the authority I had always carried, the authority they had ignored. Outside, the sun felt warmer than it had in decades. Birds chirped, children laughed somewhere down the street, and I took a deep breath. A new life awaited me, one not shadowed by betrayal, not burdened by entitlement, but full of dignity, strength, and purpose. The sweetest revenge isn't anger. It isn't shouting or cruelty. It's reclaiming your power, protecting your legacy, and walking away with grace. And that day at 75, I finally did.